Flooring Models kit review time. Today we've got something a little bit different. We've actually got down here AK's weathering set of washes. Now, as you know, obviously I manufacture our own range of weathering washes and everything else like that. We've talked about ink washes, we've made our own washes up and things like that. I'm one of these people that believes everything has its place in the hobby, okay? Some things, you can do everything. I'm a great fan of using Indian ink and literally using it as a wash like that, but sometimes it gives you funny textures, a little bit of graininess and things like that. Purpose-built washes, I've always been a little bit skeptical of, purely because I think you can sort of make them yourself. But this particular series we're looking at here, you've got various different mediums in this one, i.e. you've got texture and things like that. So what I thought I would do is, as I'm working on this particular model at the moment on the Starfighter, we could use a couple of these products down in here. So the first one we've got here is this one. This is their engine effects, which basically is going to give you AK2019, which is aircraft engine oil, okay, and then we've got AK2033, which is aircraft engine wash, okay, and then you've got AK2039, which is basically kerosene leaks and stains, okay. They come in a little box just like this, okay, and you've got them down there. So all it is, you can obviously buy these individually, or you've got them as in a set just like this. Now, to be honest, I have played with these already because I wanted to have a look at and see how they worked and everything else. And when you look at them, you can see they're in plastic bottles. Basically, these are an enamel wash, okay? So that's the first one up, which we'll look at the moment. The other one we got down here, which is the one that I've been using quite a lot recently, is the aircraft landing gear weathering set, okay? So in this one, you get AK2029, AK2031, and AK2032, which is basically their landing gear wash, their landing gear dust effect wash, and the wash for the shafts and bearings and everything else like that. This is the one that really took my eye because when we open this one up, you might see in the bottle, this one is really thick, okay? As in it's, you know, halfway between a sort of clay wash and this, but it's actually enamel, but because it's got texture, it gives you that thing of having a dusty wheels and stuff like that. So when you look at a little picture here, you can see you get that sort of dusty effect on the tyres built up inside the hubs and all of that, and this is the colour that will give it to you, okay? And when you look at it, you might be able to notice it's very gritty, for want of a better word, down in here, but it's this texture which really works well in that type of environment, okay? And then down in here again, you've actually got these, which is one I like this grease effect, and then I like this one as well, which is the actual landing gear wash effect. Now, you know, obviously it's personal choice how dirty you want things, how much you don't, and everything else. And this is where this one comes in. Because these are enamel based, you can thin these a little bit more to have a more fainted look to them, okay? So for instance, if you were doing something down here on the Starfighter, if you came in with an Indian ink wash and stuff like that, which would probably roughly do the same type of thing, but obviously you're limited in the colours, you know, you could thin that down with a little bit of water, but thinning Indian ink, when it gets to a certain point, tends to fade really badly, where this should maintain its grip. So what we've got down here, we've got the landing gear wash, and we've actually got the grease and the bearings effect, which is basically a darker version of. So when you take the top of these off, let me just give these a good shake. I say you really need to shake these. We're speaking about paint mixes and everything recently. These are exactly the same. If you don't shake them, you do get lumps and bumps and horribles and nasties all down the bottom, okay? But this is this one. This one's very dark. This is the landing gear wash, okay? And like all the sort of enamels and that, it will dry lighter, okay? And then this one here as well, which is the other one, is the sort of the bearings and grease. They are basically just the bearing grease one is more like a brownie type of tint to it versus being a black one with the landing gear wash. So what I thought I would do is, we can see with our little Starfighter here, again, we haven't got tons of areas to play with, but I'm going to use it just down in these areas down here, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to grab the dark one and say this is an enamel. So down here we've used AK's range of actual systems for doing all the metallizers, so it's their extreme metal. Okay, so usual thing, just give it a wipe off once you put it down. But you might notice this won't attack the metallizer. Okay, it just goes down there, and hopefully you can see how well the camera gets this one. If you just drop this top one down just a little bit. Hopefully you can see how it's detailed up that landing bay, because it's all clinging now nicely to the actual details in there. So it's got some hydraulic lines, hoses, things like that. So we just pick up and we're going to do the same on the other side, and you're really just going to let the capillary action work its magic. Now, as I said, I for years have stayed away from these things, but what I like about these is the capillary action works very closely to the actual whatever it's following, the curve, so you don't get that sort of tide mark which is half out. Okay, so again, if we just do the inside of this wheel well, and you might notice how we're just literally tapping and flowing as we make our way across. Okay, and then down on the other side, and again it's just a case of tapping and flowing and letting the capillary action do absolutely everything. Okay, and then we're just going to come in on this side. Okay, and then we're just going to pop in here. And the other thing as well, if you've got, like we've done here, we've got some little glue marks and things that aren't exactly brilliant, okay, and they're a little bit in the way, it will hide all of those because it's hidden underneath. Again, wheel hubs, okay, classic example. We're just going to grab this one and then we're just going to touch this in. Okay, and it's little tapping actions just to making sure it's flowing all the way around, and then we're just going to run it around the outer hub. Okay, just to give it, and then when you notice like this one obviously is a lot darker, we can just touch it to another area and spread it out, and obviously it is going to dry lighter. Okay, so we're just going to come in here and I'm going to run some around that guy, and again we're just going to run it around the entire tyre, so when it dries back it dries very natural. Okay, and then we're going to do the same in this guy inside the well, so we're just going to pop it in, push it all around and let it do its area. Okay, and as I said, I'll be honest, for years I've made my own doing this, alright, but the thing is, if you are a little bit uncomfortable, alright, and let's face it, you know, recently we've been using products which haven't worked for everybody and things like that, having a system like this just enables you to sort of pick up in one all the colours you would need for doing this type of job. Okay, now these are enamel based products, so you wouldn't want to use this on an enamel based paint because otherwise it's going to happen, it's going to thin it and it's going to melt into it, but in our case, and we're very lucky here, it hasn't got it. So hopefully you can see those wheel wells. I know it's metal on metal, which is always going to be a problem. Very nicely done and everything else. Now this will lighten up, okay, as it dries back in testing it will lighten up, so it's not going to be as dark as when you first put this stuff down, but what it will enable you to do is to almost give you a very nice subtle finish. Okay, and then if it's not quite what you want, feel free, you can overcoat and you can go again. All right, so we're just going to come around here. Okay, I'm going to do the backs of the hubs. Okay, you might notice it just gives a very nice level, you know, a definition, whatever you want to call it, to your wheels. Okay, so you see this guy down on here, as soon as we touch this down in the brakes, the capillary action runs around. Grab a little bit more, and you might notice we're hardly using any of the product whatsoever. Okay, and that puts it on. Now what we're going to do is now we're just going to run it now down the actual control points and things like that. Okay, we're not going to do the large bar, we're just going to do the small stuff, just so it has that look of oils and grease and everything else in the joins and all those areas where it gets it. Okay, and this front one, it's going to have the nose, the lights will got to be put on yet. So we're just going to pop this around, just down in here. Okay, both sides, just going to put it around, just to weather in, and everything else like that. Okay, and that is it. It is as easy as that. Okay, no problem with it whatsoever. Goes down an absolute treat on this particular one. And then you don't have to stop there. Obviously you could do things like cockpits, and to be honest, this cockpit had the same thing. And here's the one here, and we're going to use the more the brownie one here because I think black will be a little bit stark. But what we got down here is a little seat. It's a resin seat, but the thing is with this one, let me just get a clamp just to hold it here. The thing is with this, obviously we use the photo set, etch set for it, but the photo etch set, to be honest, is a little bit bright. So what we're going to do, we're just going to grab a bit of this and we're going to put this around. This will lose then the glue marks, and also it'll just dirty in and stain back the actual photo etch parts just a little bit. I'm hoping this isn't going to ping off. I think it will, so I'll take it off. Okay, and it will just make your photo etch just that little bit more realistic. And obviously by doing the cushions and that, it will blend everything in. It will give some shadowing, some depth, and all of that. Now traditionally I'd always do this with Indian ink, but I did one the other day with it and I was really, really impressed. Okay, so again, if you've got any glue marks, stuff like that, and we're just going to pop it around the entire of this just to add another layer and blend stuff in, so decals and stuff like that. Okay, just to blend all this in, just to darken it all down, and as I say, any super glue little marks you have and things like that, it should make it all a lot better. And it will dry back flat, don't worry about that too much. Okay, and it will go in there just like that. Okay, is it better than using Indian ink? I think it probably is, being honest, okay, because the thing is with Indian ink, I just use black Indian ink every day. By using this stuff, you know, it gives you that sort of, I don't know, a bit more control with the colour. So if you wanted to lighten it slightly, obviously you could use a greasy colour, you can do landing gear. I think the names are all a little bit all over the place. It's all very well giving these fancy names. Why they don't just call it dark, you know, I know I'm biased again, but like a dark wash, a medium wash and a light wash. That way you could get a set of roughly what you're doing, okay, and things like that. But these definitely have their place. I have been using them and I do like them. I don't think some of the colours are all over it. You know, obviously we've got these other ones over here which are engine oils, which as you can see at the bottom, these are a lot more brown, okay, in their actual colours and things like that. So obviously they have that engine oil colour. But my point to these are really, if you've got no weathering sets at all and you don't want to go down the thing of making Indian ink and stuff like that, and you want to, what I call reach for the bottle, okay, these are a great little option. The other thing I like about them is I'm an acrylic user for all of my paints. These are enamel based. So I can just put these straight over my acrylics and I know it's not going to eat its way into it. Whereas obviously if I was doing something traditional, perhaps with like my Indian ink technique, I use airbrush cleaner to thin it, it does start to eat into the actual paintwork and stuff like that. So you do have to be a little bit careful with it, a little bit mindful of it, where obviously these you don't. But there again, if you're an enamel painter, these are enamel. So just make sure you put down a protective layer before you come in between. So summing up really, you know, weathering sets, I think if you haven't got any, these are an easy option and probably the easiest thing you can do. I went with these two, to be honest. I bought these purely because I wanted to have a go with engine effects, and I'm thinking, okay, we've got some engines coming up in the future, let's just try a weathering set that's designed to do it. Okay, so we've got this one here, and then obviously one for doing gear. I do a lot of aircraft stuff like that, so I thought I'd give it a whirl, and I've used it on a couple of other projects in the past and a couple of things, and to be honest, Buster had a go as well. Buster, you can see down here how horrible it gets. This is the difference in the colour. This is the dark and the light, or as they call it, the actual landing gear wash, and then the grease effect and bearing stuff just down in here, just to see what it was like and everything else. And this is Indian ink down on this one. Okay, so it just gives you the options to go through and everything else like that on Buster when he had a coat the other day. As I said, it's horses for courses. If you've got weathering sets and everything else, you're probably not going to be turning down and just buying these just for the sake of it. But if you haven't got any weathering sets, then these are a great way of building up your arsenal and giving yourself something on the shelf where when you get to that thing, you can say, right, okay, I'm going to give it a wash. So like we've done here, the seat's drying back now as I'm yapping on. It's got a nice satin finish to it. It'll look really nice. And what it's done is it's stained back all the harnesses and all the bits and pieces just to bring them in. It also gets rid of all those little tiny dusty super glue marks around the edge. It absorbs into those being enamel and it will get rid of them. So that finishes that off really well, and it's all now ready to be popped into the aircraft, ready for the final reveal if you're watching this one. And everything else like that. So definitely I think these have a very good place. And now these have hopefully dried back. This is pretty much what you're going to get on the underside. As you can see, it gives nice definition inside those wheel wells. It certainly gets those wheels going really well. You can see both sides of them and everything else like that. So really they do get a thumbs up. I don't think they're anything new. They're nothing new. There's obviously different sets out there and everything else like that. But if you do want to get hold of a weathering set, then perhaps these two sets would probably be my sort of, you know, way to go with it. Get yourself an engine one because you can use that. Get yourself a wheel one, and then from that you can look at the colours and think, okay, like in here, I'm going to give the cockpit a wash, so I'm going to use landing gear wash in there because let's face it, it's pretty good for it. I can't see the point of going out and getting a cockpit wash when this almost does the same type of thing, same colours. I do like the dust effect. That's got a very nice texture in there and everything else for that, just that bit that builds up around tyres and inside wheels and everything else like that, because it's a textured paint. It's very, very thick. It's got, when it dries, it's got that nice dusty, worn look to it. So using it in combination with other things, it gives it a very nice effect. So there we go, that is the new stuff. Well, not new, been around a while, but new to me for the AK series of weathering products.